Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I hope this is going to be something fun. As I said in my stories before, this is the first time I've done anything like this, so I'm a little bit nervous, but hey ho. I hope that this will be interesting to watch. I'm going to work on his eye this morning, or this afternoon. See how far we go. I'll try and keep up with questions, and I've had a few answers on my story about things people would like me to talk about, so I'll cover those as well. And yeah, try and draw and talk at the same time, which is not something I'm used to doing. So let me just have a look. So one of the questions that I was asked on my story was about how much pressure I use on my pencils. And for this eye, what I'm doing now, I'm just putting in the outline of the eye. So I'm using kind of like a medium pressure on this bit. But when it comes to the fur and quite a lot of the other places, I use quite a light pressure really on most of it until it gets to the details. Use a slightly firmer pressure then. It's so hot in my studio. If I open the window, I'm going to get all the noises from outside. So one of my neighbours has decided to do some drilling today, which has fortunately just stopped. Otherwise you would have heard all of that in the background. I've had to shut Wilbur out as well because he gets up and he's got tippy-tappy claws on the laminate floor, so he just makes such a racket. So he's been banished, unfortunately. It's really hard to keep up with comments and drawing at the same time. I'm not very good at this. Oh, thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to try and work quickly so you can see something by the end of the video. Otherwise it's just going to be a bit of a blob. It's going to go through the ugly stage as well, which is always a bit nerve-wracking doing live on camera. But when I did the poll, majority of people seemed to want to see it from the beginning, so I thought I'd give it a go. Right, that's the outline of that done. That was, if anyone's interested, that was warm grey 6. Got all of the warm greys and the cool greys. They get used all the time. Don't use black very often until the very end. Warm grey 6 and dark sepia are pretty good for that sort of bit. This is a dusting brush, in case anyone's wondering why I've got a sweepy brush on my desk. Just gets rid of all of that mess. Like that pencil, the end of it just snapped, so all the little bits go on my paper. Rather than blowing with the chance I might spit all over my paper, I just sweep it away. There's nothing worse than doing that. You think you're just going to blow all the little bits away and you end up with spit or dribble everywhere. Oh, not dribble. Don't dribble on my work. Oh dear. How long do I spend on one area? I'd say the features take the longest, definitely. I'll work on the features for, like this sort of size is about 1 inch by 1 inch this size, so that'll probably take me between half an hour to an hour, which so I'm hoping that I'll get that bit finished. But then the fur is harder to tell because it depends how many layers it needs. Like the lighter colours of fur, like the sandy colours and that, don't take as many layers, whereas black fur I find takes about 20 layers sometimes. So it does take a bit longer. Depends on the type of fur as well. The curly fur definitely takes a long time. Haven't had a chance to do a nice big curly furry dog for ages. I've had to do lots of little ones lately. You can't quite get all the curls in. A nice spaniel is always fun. Do I use Faber Castell, I presume it is? Yeah, they're mostly Polychromos and Caran-d'Ache Luminance. I've got loads of these as well. They're really nice. They're very soft, the Luminance ones. So I usually start off my base layers with Polychromos because they're a bit harder. I don't like going into a soft, smushy layer to start off with. I like it to be quite firm, but then I don't use very hard pressure, so sort of an in-between. One of the other questions that someone asked me, which is there's a bit more to it, is how to become a full-time artist, which is quite an interesting question because there's so many different ways you can go about it. For me, I started off just part-time in the evenings and weekends when I had free time. But I had quite a demanding full-time job, and then I've got a little boy who's 5 now. So when I first started doing my part-time stuff, he was about 1 or 18 months old. So obviously I didn't have a massive amount of free time. But just building up a portfolio of work and getting your work out on social media is really important for those early stages. So I found word of mouth was my best tool to begin with before you build up a wider audience. So even if that means just working for friends and family to start with, figure out a price list. I find that really helpful because otherwise if people come to you and you don't really know what you're charging, it can be a bit awkward, especially if you are working for friends and family, because that can sometimes be a bit tricky to ask for money. But if you have a price list with some sizes that you like working with, then it kind of gives you something easy to give to people when they inquire, so then you don't have to be umming and ahhing and wondering about how you talk to them about money. And then when you start to build up a portfolio and you have a few commissions in the diary, then you can really start with the social media, posting as much as you can. But I found when I first started, I was kind of doing a bit of this, that and the other, so it was a bit random. It wasn't until a couple of years into it that I really focused on the coloured pencil and then just on animals, pet portraits and wildlife. Before that I was doing all sorts, like I painted a golf course for someone and some people, an ice rink and all sorts of funny things, but it was never really what I wanted to do. I love animals, so that's what I wanted to focus on. And in the end, when I did narrow it down, I found that my client base started to grow because people knew what I was offering. So if you kind of figure out the style that you like working with and the subject matter that you like, I think you'll find it easier to progress gradually into becoming a full-time artist rather than trying to do multiple different subjects and different mediums and all sorts, because people like to know what you're offering. So if you figure out that whilst you're building up a portfolio, like pick your preferred medium and all that sort of thing, that definitely helps to get more interest in your work. And then I've made some notes over here, just having a look. Don't worry as well, if it's a gradual process, don't worry too much about that, because I think a lot of artists find that it's not like one day you quit your full-time job and then you can instantly become a full-time artist. There's quite a lot that needs to go on in the background first. So unless you've got a big chunk of money that you want to kind of rely on as you start building up, then I'd definitely suggest doing it part-time and see how you go. Build up your client base gradually and then see how you go from there. And then as your diary fills up, you can sort of gradually transition more to the artwork, and hopefully you've got a job that can allow you to go part-time or something like that, or get another job that is part-time just to support you in those early months or years. I've been full-time now for almost 2 years. It's been fun, but it is quite demanding when you always need to be on. You need to keep going, otherwise there's no one at work. Oh, that's a good one. How do you know which colour to use, as there are so many shades in the tin? Also, which paper do you use? Colour-wise, I think I've just got to know the pencils that I use. I've used them for about 4 or 5 years now. So I like certain ones and I know which ones work well with each other. You can, if you want to, use a chart. I've done this for one of my patrons. I've put together a little list of all the colours that might work well in a picture. But I find when I'm working on things, I like to just pick them out as I go, to be honest. And I know roughly what colours I'll need in each picture, and if I need another one, I'll just grab it out of the box. And paper, I use Fabriano Artistico hot pressed watercolour paper, but I use the 300 GSM, not the 640, because I just prefer it's a bit harder. The 640 is a bit spongy. I'm not so keen on that one. And I use it in traditional white rather than bright white. Right, I'm going to give it a go in his iris. So it's got a ton of highlights in this eye, which is going to be a bit tricky to draw around them. I have to concentrate for a minute. Can't do two things at once. I'd say for base layers and stuff, these three are my main ones. So you've got ivory, warm grey 1 and cold grey 1. So it just depends what colour it is that I'm building up to. So in the eye, he's got nice brown eyes. So the ivory works well as a base for that. Just need to remove some of these pencil marks, otherwise they'll blend in. Are there any other mediums I like to use? I like working in acrylic. I don't get a chance to do it very often, but I have got a great big acrylic commission coming up, which I'm really excited about. I'll get to post about that soon. I might, if I get all of my work done before baby arrives, then I can get started on it before she gets here, but we'll see. I've only got 3 weeks left until she arrives, so we'll see. But yeah, acrylic is definitely a good one. I like that one because they dry quite quickly, so it means I can keep my pace up, which I like. I haven't really worked with oil paints for the reason that they just take too long, and I'm impatient. I like to be able to see results quickly. But I mean, coloured pencils are quite slow, so it doesn't really make that much sense. But in terms of paint, I think acrylic is better for me because it dries faster and also it's not smelly. I've got my studio in my house, so I don't really want to be stinking the whole place out with oil paints. How long do you think this piece will take to complete? It's 12 by 12 inch, so he is, like the actual drawing himself, he is, let's see, 26 centimetres high and he's about 21 centimetres wide, just in case you're wondering. I reckon a 12 by 12 like this should really, if I was concentrating on it all in one go, I'd complete it within a week. But I think this is going to be one that I come back to here and there because it's just a picture for me for home. Because I haven't drawn my dog yet. He's a funny boy. He's usually up here in the studio with me, but he's been banished. I didn't want to make him too much noise because he decides halfway through me working that he wants to go outside and inside and outside. So he's a pain in the bum. Right, that's fine now. I'm going to go back to dark sepia, I think, because in the photo that I'm working from, he's got tiny bits of eyelashes showing through. So I'll just pop those in. I'll save this video to my Instagram TV channel so that if you want to come back and have a look, or if you can't stay long, then you can watch the rest of it later. I didn't know what was the best time for people to be able to watch it. Hopefully it'll be alright up on Instagram TV. I'll be able to watch it back and cringe at listening to myself talking. Is it a black colour pencil? No, I don't use black until the very end really, and also sometimes I don't even use black. I'll use this one instead. It's dark indigo, a luminance pencil. It is blue, but if you mix it with a little bit of brown, this one's good for that. Sepia, luminance sepia. Those two together make a really deep black. Because sometimes the polychromos just depends what how many layers you've got, but sometimes the polychromos black just doesn't work very well. It's not very black. It's not very rich. So yeah, the dark indigo and the sepia together work really nicely. Right, where's it going? It's quite good actually that I'm focusing on just the eye because I'm so bad at darting all over the place. Like when I get to the fur, I'll be here, there and everywhere. It's hard to keep up. Will I ever draw a dinosaur? I've been asked that a few times. I don't know if there's a market there for dinosaur drawings. I know my son would love that, but it just does seem a bit of a random one. I suppose you don't see them very often, not in fine art anyway, dinosaur artwork. Definitely need to use your creative license for that. I might try drawing something with scales, not necessarily a dinosaur, but like a lizard or something like that. Might be quite interesting to give it a go. Oh, hi from Mississippi. Got people all over the place. Thank you very much for everyone joining me. Have another look at the questions in a second. Just got to concentrate on this, otherwise I'll put something in the wrong place and then I can't undo it very well. Using a really light pressure on this bit around here because I don't need to go in too hard with the layers as I build it up. It's sort of a very gradual process, so I can do nice soft layers. Do you mess up a drawing and start it all over again? Sometimes. That does happen sometimes. It's usually down to the colouring. If I've layered up the colours in a weird way, it's usually on the lighter pictures, to be honest. But if I've layered up the colours in a weird way, sometimes the polychromos and the luminance don't like each other very much if you put them in the wrong order. So if I feel like I've messed it up in that way, then I usually do try again, but I try not to do that too often because obviously it's a waste of time and paper and everything. But if I feel like something's not going right, then I will definitely stop and start it over, because there's just no point in keep going, because once you've got that feeling of nah, it's not working, you're kind of just waiting to stop and start again, so you may as well do it sooner rather than later. Do I ever underpaint method with watercolour markers? No, I haven't ever done that before. I like keeping everything nice and dry and simple. So the polychromos themselves work quite nicely as a base layer, so I don't ever feel like I really need to. Oh, thank you for the congratulations. Working on a spaniel. The paper, again, if anyone's missed it, I work on Fabriano Artistico hot press watercolour paper. It's the 300 GSM and it is in traditional white. I think that's the question I get asked most out of all of the questions on my posts and stuff, is what paper. I do try and put it in the description when I remember, but I think it gets missed sometimes. I'm going to start putting in all those funny shapes that you get in an iris. Try and concentrate on the reference photo. If I'm not concentrating too much, or not concentrating enough, I'll end up just making it up as I go along, and then you look back and oh, that's not meant to be there. I sharpened all my pencils before I came on and they keep flicking off all the little bits on the end. How do I get my artwork printed? To be honest, I've tried to step away from prints as much as I can. I do print things every now and then, but I don't have my own printing stuff, so I have to go elsewhere, and obviously with the pandemic and everything being a complete nuisance, I've tried to stop where I can, but I have a really handy local framer who has all of the equipment, and he lets me use his computer to sort out all of the files. So I take the photos myself, or I use his scanner, which is an Epson one. I'm not sure of the model, but it's A3, so anything that's A3 or smaller I can scan, and then anything bigger than that I photograph myself and just take the raw files to him so that I can play around on Photoshop and just get them to match. And then I'll either get them printed with him, or I use Point 101, which is a London-based print company. And you just they've got a really handy website actually, because you can just upload your file and then you can change the size to what you need, add a border if you need to, and then you can choose the paper surface that you want it printed onto. So they've got loads of different options, which is handy. I use I'm never going to be able to pronounce it. Begins with a H. It's like Hagumi or something along those lines. Something rag paper. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's probably going to be completely wrong, but it definitely begins with a H. I do limited edition prints just because I like them to be a bit more special, and you can keep an eye on where I like to keep a record of where they're all going, like all the different countries that they go to. But yeah, I don't have a shop on my website, so I think that is a bit of a hindrance, to be honest, because people can't just buy what they want when they see it. They have to get in touch, and I'll sort out an invoice and everything, which is, I mean, it's lovely to be able to speak to the customers directly, but I think it does put people off. But I just haven't got the time to be packing up loads of orders, so I've just left it as it is for now. How many pieces am I working on at the moment? I've got this one which I just started just for this purpose, but I've got a commission which I started this morning. If I just grab it, I'll show you quickly how far I got to. So he's a little to be honest, I don't know the breed of him actually. He looks like a cross between two breeds, but he's very sweet. So I started that one, and I also need to get on with my next month's patron tutorial. So I've got a white fur tutorial, and then the tiger picture, which I've got everything all over the place. The tiger's this big, so it's about the same sort of size as what I'm working on with Wilbur. So for my next bit, I'm going to do the other side of her face and her nose and some of the whiskers and things. So I've got that one on the go as well. I try to do things one thing at a time, because I don't really like having loads of stuff on the go, but sometimes it works out that way. I do like to try and start something and finish it. I like to have one thing on my desk at a time, but it's not always the case, especially now with Patreon as well, which is very fun to make the tutorials. I'm starting to get the hang of working with the camera on me. It's taken a while though. Where do I get my reference photos from when it's not a commission? I've got a few places. I love to work directly with photographers. So Instagram is full of so many talented photographers. So any animal, any subject, you could probably find a photographer that has a portfolio of work based on that subject. And then I just contact them directly and ask them if it's possible to use their photos as a reference. I'll always tell them exactly what my intentions are, and like if I'm planning on making any prints of a piece, if it's going to be for sale or if it's going into an exhibition or anything like that, and then just ask them how much they charge for that, like for me to use it as a reference for the permission. Some photographers are amazing and they are happy to just let me use it. I'll offer a print if I'm making a print as a thank you. But if a photographer wants a specific amount of money, then that's well worth it in my opinion, because they've done all the hard work to take the picture in the first place. So I think it's just important to make sure that you're really upfront with what you're planning on doing with the picture, crediting the photographer where you can, and making sure that you pay for it if they need payment, or offering them something in return if they're happy for you to use it for free. I just think it's a bit cheeky to be asking for photos for free if you're planning on gaining from it. I think all creative businesses and avenues should support each other. So I mean, if you're a photographer, you've got all of the equipment that goes with that, and the time that you spend trying to wait for the animals to get into the positions and things that you can capture. So it's well worth it in my opinion. But if I can't find a photographer that's taken a picture of exactly what I need, if I need a certain pose or something, then I'll just keep looking. There's other places that are really handy to use, like what's it called? Wildlife Reference Photos. They've got a huge catalogue of photographs, and that's all on a website where you can pay for it on the website, and the agreement is already up on the website. So once you've made the purchase, you have the agreement to use the photograph for your artwork. And Tazzy Brown's got an amazing catalogue of pictures as well. She has her own website with the same sort of setup. So I've got a few photos from all three of those places, to be honest, photographers and the two websites. It's just nice to be able to get a really high resolution photo as well. Like, not all of my commissions have high res photos, and it's always a treat to have a nice one. You can see a bit of green in there. I'm going to go with the olive brown 50%. It's not really green as such, it's just sort of a green tone. Oh, thanks everyone for the nice comments and things. Do I have a YouTube channel? I have started a YouTube channel for Patreon, because that's where I can upload them to, but I haven't actually put anything that's public yet. I'm hoping to do some in the future, not too distant future, but I'm waiting. Like, I don't want to appear on anything myself, like in person, in my face, I mean, until I've had this baby, because I've got a big old chubby pregnant face, which is not very attractive. So I might manage to get something up when she's quite little, but we'll see. I mean, I don't really need to be in the videos as such. It's just, if I was to share my face, then I'd like it to be a bit less puffy. Right. What else do we have? Oh, thanks about the tiger. I'm hoping to get that one finished in the next couple of months. I'm sort of doing it gradually over a few months, so that the videos are easy enough to edit and everything. Otherwise you end up with heaps of footage, and it just turns into like a 6-hour long tutorial, which is a bit much. I don't know if you can tell how sporadic I am with where I work with things. I don't really have a certain way of working. I just pick pencils up and just work randomly. So I don't focus on one area very well. That's why I end up changing pencils so regularly. I love all the little bits in an iris though. It's so interesting to draw them. They're all wiggly. Like so many different shapes and tones to capture. I always find eyes the most interesting bit to do, so I will start with them. I'd say that's my favourite part, is the eyes, like making sure you can capture the life in them and then move on from there. Noses are fun as well. I'd say my least favourite is probably the chest area. Once you've finished all of the interesting bits and you just get to the chest fur, because I draw my portraits all the way to the bottom. Sometimes it can be quite a lot of chest fur and it can be a little bit tedious depending on the colour and the texture. What art-based education have you done, or are you self-taught? I studied all of the art subjects available to me at college, so that's A-level when I was 16 to 18. I did fine art, art textiles, product design, and I did an extended project based on illustration. And I was going to go to university in Falmouth to study illustration, but I just didn't feel right to be doing that. I just, I had doubts about going down there and being away from home and all that sort of thing. So I ended up working freelance for a year on murals, like wall murals. So I learnt quite a lot in that year, but then I ended up, after that, working for a local interior design company. So I was with them for about 7 years, and I learnt loads while I was there. So it was really beneficial to spend those years with them. It was a nice team of people, but it just, in the end, it got so big that as an introvert, I was a bit like, too many people. So that's when I ended up working from home for myself, which was nice. Definitely happy with my own company, which is it's really that's why it's so daunting for me to think about being on Instagram live, but hey, I seem to have calmed myself down. I was getting a bit worked up this morning, but it's all alright. See what I mean about flitting here, there and everywhere? I've started on the fur now. I should really be finishing off the eyeball. So I don't really think about it too much. I just sort of wander around. I don't know if that makes me faster or slower, to be honest. But I've never been very good at focusing on one bit at a time. Any suggestions on how to deal with art block? I think for me, because it's my full-time job now, it's just like I have to show up. I have to do the work to support my family and everything. So I don't find I get too hung up on motivation to do things. But there were times in the past when I was doing it in my spare time that I'd put it off. I'd be like, oh no, I can't be bothered to do it today. Or if I wasn't sure on a medium, then I'd put it off and I'd just, busy yourself with other things. But I find, even if now when I'm not feeling it, but I have to go to work, obviously, if I'm struggling, then I just make sure I do sit down at my desk with my pencils and like give it 5 minutes and you've kind of forgotten that you weren't really in the mood for it. You kind of get into the swing of things. When it comes to using new mediums, I try and find a really interesting reference. So something I really, really want to draw or paint, and then it keeps you going a little bit more. Like, I wouldn't say for your first thing that you've drawn in ages, pick something that you don't like drawing or get a commission that you're not too happy with or anything like that. Like, if you're getting back into it or it's your first attempt, then definitely pick something that you really enjoy. A piece of artwork that you'd like to have up in your house. Oh, and my neighbours are drilling again. That's nice. Thought they'd had enough for today. Hopefully they don't go on too long. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Just getting out there, like sitting down at your desk or wherever you draw, and just getting started on something. I find that really helps to just forget about the fact that you weren't motivated or you had a block. If you find that you have started drawing and you really, really just can't carry on because it's just not working, then like I'd find just picking out one tiny little area and really focusing on it, or swapping between a couple of different things, so you're constantly concentrating on something different, rather than just having a great big picture and you're lost in amongst it. You can't be bothered to finish it, or you get stuck on a bit. You can flip between the two and then hopefully learn as you're going from one to the other. Even if they both end up being not finished, then at least you've done something. And then perhaps look for another reference that inspires you again. And if it's block from, like, if you're really struggling to do a certain commission, unless it's for a particular birthday or something, then I'd just be honest with the client and just say, is it alright if I just leave this for another week? I'll get back to it whenever you can. Because otherwise I find if you're just drawing for the sake of drawing, sometimes it doesn't end up how you want it to look. So yeah, I think that would be my advice for that, if that helps at all. Am I using a reference? Yeah, I've got my iPad's up here. I've got it on a little thingy. So here's his eye, and I've just got it on a little stand in front of me so I can see it. I've got all these clamps in the way, so I can't put it next to the paper, otherwise I won't see a thing. I'm not just making it up as I go along. Definitely can't do that. Pencils, I've got Polychromos and Luminance. In my whole collection I have got a few others, but not very many of them. Got a couple of light fast ones which I've tried recently. They're okay, I'm still getting used to them, to be honest. Just figuring out which ones work well with the pencils I've already got. And then some Caran d'Ache Pablo pencils. I literally have two of those, light beige and beige. So the light beige I use quite often. That's quite a nice soft one, but the beige is a bit pinky, so it doesn't get used very often. How did I start the initial drawing? Oh, do you mean the sketch? To sketch out, I use a few different methods, to be honest. If I'm feeling really, if I've got loads of time, then I will freehand it if I want to do something at a leisurely pace. But generally, I use a transferring method to just get the basic outline down quickly. If it's a big piece, then I'll use a projector to get the basic outline, like I did for the wild dog I drew recently. I projected the basic outline, like really very basic, and then went in with a pencil and just filled in all the details freehand. I find it easier to make sure you know that the proportions are definitely right, because I had a few commissions a few years back when I was doing everything freehand, and it was just taking me so long. And I'd also worked on something for about 5 or 6 hours, and the angle of the face was a bit of a tricky one to draw. And I found after these 5 or 6 hours that I'd moved the eye too far over or too close to the nose or something, and it had to be redone because I just wasn't happy with it. So it's all of that time spent on the initial drawing, and then the coloured pencil was just like kind of wasted a day almost. So just getting those basic outlines down with if you want to do tracing paper, transfer paper, anything like that, it just speeds up the process, and you know that you've got an accurate outline. Sometimes people think that transferring or tracing can be cheating, and they get all funny about it, but the coloured pencil is the bit where you have to put the work in. So I see it as a very useful tool, as many other artists do. But it's definitely not paint by numbers, I assure you. The outline needs to be there just for a guide, really. Then you just keep referencing your photograph to fill it in. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Well, I hope most of you are. Introverts, yes. I think a lot of artists are quite introverted. I think we like our own company, and it's not very natural to be chatting away whilst you're drawing. I mean, I'm in my studio on my own, chattering away, but actually it's turned out to be easier than I thought, so that's nice. As well, yeah, I mean, it helps to have lots of nice people asking questions, so thank you for that. It's a weird thing, isn't it, putting yourself out online? Because you definitely become a bit more vulnerable. That's the thing I was worried about most, is that I was going to make a fool of myself and sound really silly. But hopefully you're just all going to be kind. Everyone seems to be so far. Put this little eye bit. Oh, hi Emily. My favourite animal to draw or paint. I like things with a pattern, definitely. So if it's wild animals, then I like painting or drawing. Big cats and zebras are fun. I did a zebra last year or the year before. That was fun. Just getting in all the different colours and patterns. The grouse that I did last year, that was a bit of a headache with the patterns, because I'm not very good at following like intricate patterns very well. I kind of veer off and do my own thing, which, you know, sometimes is alright, but when you're trying to follow something closely, it's quite hard. Out of all the dogs that I've done, I think my favourite breed to draw is Labradors or Spaniels. Spaniels are fun because they've got the nice ears to draw. But I've got a few different breeds in my diary this year, which is going to be interesting, because sometimes you get like the same dog pretty much, like one after the other, which, you know, is lovely to work on any picture, but sometimes it's nice to have a change. The elephant and rhino skin is always a fun challenge as well. It's something I put off for ages, but when I actually did draw a rhino and an elephant, I found them really fun. You have to work in a really different way to fur, but I like a challenge, so it was good to have a go in the end. So you declined your first offer for a commission as you didn't feel your skills were up to scratch. I think it is a wise decision if you don't feel like you were ready for it. Obviously you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself, because if you're working for someone and they have a certain expectation, then you want to meet that. But if their expectations are based on what the work that you've already produced, then I'd say definitely give it a go. Perhaps you could ask for a reference and just see how you feel drawing out. Like if you drew the outline out and gave it a little go before you committed, that might be a way of doing it. Just to get around that fear of being committed to a commission. So it can be a bit daunting sometimes. I know in the early days when I felt like I hadn't done a very good job, and you'd send through that email with the picture to the client, and it's sort of like waiting with bated breath, like, are they going to like it? Is it going to be okay? But just having that confidence in yourself and knowing that you have done the best that you can, that's as good as you can get, really. If the client then finds fault and you need to edit something or just tweak something here or there, then that's fine. I think that all helps with building confidence as well. So I don't know, perhaps you could ask for something that's similar to the commission, just to give yourself a bit of practice. And then you'll know for next time that it is something that you can do, or if you need to work on a particular area of your drawing, just to bring your confidence up. Pressure on both the base layer and the fur strokes. Okay. I have to think now. So for the base layer, I use quite a soft pressure, and I tend to use a sort of like circular scribbly sort of motion to kind of work it into the tooth of the paper, because Fabriano is quite a toothy paper, which is good for layers, but some colours take to it better than others, so you can sometimes have to work it in. I don't find you have to press too hard, but I do work in a round and round sort of scribbly motion. So that's quite it's probably a medium pressure. Like if I show you on here, it's probably so you can see how it presses into my hand. It's quite firm, I suppose. But then when it gets to the second and third layers of fur, then I'm usually more like this sort of backwards and forwards strokes to put the direction of fur in, and that's a bit lighter. I don't really put much pressure on until I'm at the very end, like the last few layers, just because otherwise if you press too hard, then that's it, you can't go back. So if you do make any errors, or if you've done something a little bit too dark, then you're not really going to get it back out if you've put that in on your first layers. You can remove sometimes if it's like your third or fourth layer in and you've put a bit too much down, you can remove that because you've got the other layers underneath to kind of lift it off of. But if it's straight onto the paper too hard, then you're never going to get it out. And that's sometimes when you have to start again if you've put something in the wrong place. I've got the window, it's making a pattern on my paper. See if I can get it to go away. There we are. It's the only problem with having a south-facing window. It's perfect in the morning and in the afternoon, but in the middle of the day, it's very bright on a sunny day. I have to have the blind closed and then the lights on. Oh, I'm glad people are finding what I'm talking about interesting. that's helpful. So you never really know when you're waffling on about things. What is the fair and sequence of colours you're using? So my dog is a black Labrador, so where the darker bits are is quite black on the photo. But then where the light hits him, it's quite a light grey, so it's a nice mixture. So I've got about 25 colours out that I would use for this picture, maybe a bit more. But the main ones for the fur, I'd use this selection, I reckon. Mainly these. So I've got warm grey 6, dark sepia, warm grey 2, warm grey 1, and then the cooler areas would be these guys, which is warm grey 5, cold grey 1, cold grey 2, and cold grey 5. So yeah, it depends what area it is. If it's a warmer bit, then I'll use the warm tones. If it's cooler, then use the cold ones, and then build up gradually with the warm grey 6 or dark sepia, depending on, or warm grey 5, cold grey 5. Sorry, so many different greys. Forget what they were called. I think I just look at I've got used to what they all do now, so I can just look at the colour and pick up the right pencil, but sometimes you do pick up the wrong one, and that's another reason why I use a light pressure, just in case the colour that I've picked out isn't quite right, because if you go in heavy-handed with the colour and it's not quite the right one, then you could completely ruin that tone that you've been creating, and then you can't get it back off again. So always a light pressure when you're starting, I think. Once you are confident that it's the right colour, then maybe increase the pressure a bit more. Oh yeah, there's loads of colours. Loads and loads. Surprising how many colours go into it. Even in white fur, to be honest. If you were drawing white fur, you'd still need at least 10 colours, because you've got all the different whites and pinks and blues. It's like you've got those ones which are just, you've got white there, but then there's buff titanium, there's pink white, a little bit of ivory. There's so many different tones in white fur. So yeah, you always end up using more colours than you'd expect. I've been on for an hour already, but it's gone really quickly. I was expecting it to be a bit nerve-wracking and I'd be clock watching and hoping to that I've done enough, but if everyone's still happy watching, I'll carry on, see how much further I can get on with this. I definitely haven't finished the iris here, I keep wandering off. Put a bit of white into those highlights, but they're not actually completely white. On my reference I've got a bit of blue and a bit of green in there, so I'll try and get that in. This is probably the brightest colour I've got in my box of pencils. I only use it for irises, like the highlights and stuff. Because when it looks white, it's actually blue. And I can see a bit of green in there. And this last one over here, and the reference is a bit pink. All colours in there. Oh, I nearly missed a question. Someone asked me about my packaging earlier, and I've described all the bits that I use for my packaging. When I'm putting together my pictures, I've just got an authenticity certificate here from my prints that I do with fine shooting accessories. So, oh, here you go. Here's the paper I use for prints. And Himmel. Still can't pronounce it. But yeah, so I have a certificate of authenticity. I also make artwork care guides. So I have these glassine little envelopes that they go into and signed certificates and things. And then I've got all sorts of other things that I've printed. So I've got a sticker that goes on the box so people know where it's from. And then I've got different business cards that have my details on the back. And I've got Chester and Pip. They're my two buddies for my business cards. And then I like to write a message as well if it's for a commission or if it's a print, to be honest. I've got these made up, so they're like little compliment slips, so I can write on the back. They're postcards from Moo. I think they're all from Moo, actually, all of these things. Yeah, the stickers as well. So you can have as many different designs as you want to on those. And then I get all my portraits mounted with my local framer. And if you're interested in what mount it is, I get the Arcadia Hayseed colour, which matches the Fabriano Artistico in traditional white really well. It sits really nicely against that. So I get the Hayseed on all of my portraits on this paper. And then it's always put into a wrap, like a cello wrap bag. And then I'll... what do I do next? Acid-free tissue paper, wrap it all up in that. And then I've got some string, which is too far away, so I can't grab that. But I've just got like a grey jute string. And then I pop that around like a parcel with a business card hole punched on. And then wrap it all up ready for postage. I like to put corners on the sides as well. I don't know if I can get those to show you. Yeah. I get these. So I pop those on the corners of all the mounts just in case, because couriers like to throw things around and you never know if it's going to get there in one piece. So I like to just protect it and make sure it's all wrapped up well. So the last thing you want is to have a nicely mounted picture arrive and the corner's been bashed. I think that's it. Yeah, and then it's just all wrapped up. I do use stickers on my boxes as well. I use like do not bend, and if it's framed I've got glass with care, and I'll use fragile tape on the edges, but I try not to plaster it in. Fragile tape. So I got told the other day, apparently people in the post office can sometimes rebel against fragile tape and they throw it around anyway, which is horrible to think of, but that's why the inside packaging needs to be so good. Very sturdy, otherwise you risk it all being broken, especially if it's going really far away. Like glazed portraits going all the way over to America or Australia from the UK is quite scary, but as long as it's packed up properly it's usually absolutely fine. What do I do if the reference commission for a commission isn't good? To be honest, I have that all the time. Like the amount of commissions that I take on with bad references is like 8 out of 10. Sometimes a picture can look like it's okay, and then you zoom in and actually there's no detail there whatsoever. So I've kind of trained myself to create detail, because it was just getting to the point where I was never getting the right sort of pictures. I mean, I could always go back and ask for better references, but sometimes it's not always easy. If, like, say, if the animal has passed away, or if someone isn't or doesn't have access to a brilliant camera, then it's not really possible. The only thing I would challenge is if all the photos you've got are inside with artificial light, because obviously you can't see the exact colour of their fur. So if they're able to provide you with a photo in natural light, that's always worth asking. But when it comes to no detail, there's quite a lot of photographs on websites like Pixabay or Pexels they're free to use. They're free stock images, so you can use them just as a reference if you needed more detail on a nose, or you needed something to look at that was a bit more detailed for the eyes or ears, for anything that you need a bit of a hand with, then you can use photos from there. They download free off of the website, and they're quite high resolution, so I find they're helpful if you need to be looking at something to create the detail. But I've found over the years that I've just ended up getting used to photos that are rubbish, to be honest. The one that I'm doing at the moment, the one I showed earlier on, the little... I still can't think what breed he is. Is he a Patterdale Terrier, maybe? Something like that. The photo of him is really, really pixelated, and where it's only a 6x8 portrait, I can add in enough detail from that picture to make it to a quality that I'm happy with. But if I was working any larger than that, I'd need a better photograph, so I would go back to the client then and ask for something better. It's tricky though when it's a surprise for someone and they've got the best they can and they can't get a better photograph. It is tricky. But you can always say no if you really think that it's not going to work. You can just explain to the client. I'm sure they'll understand. And if they really, really want you to do it, then they'll find a way of getting a better photo. I don't like to say no to people though, which is probably it backfires on me quite a lot, but I try to take on what I can. Let's see if I missed anything. Can you record it? Oh, I'll save the video to my Instagram TV channel, so it'll be available there, so you can have a look at it again whenever you need to. Hopefully that's helpful, and you can listen to this waffle many more times. Hopefully I've covered everything. I don't know if I've missed any questions. How did you market yourself when you first got started? So I think word of mouth is really, really important in those early days. So for working for friends and family and putting things on your personal Facebook or Instagram is helpful. I think Facebook, when you're starting out, Facebook is definitely better for getting work. Instagram, not so much. People just like to look at your pictures. But if you can build up Facebook, then you're more likely to get work coming in because people will share it with their friends and stuff. What else helps? I mean, you can start off a business page on Facebook if you want to, like if you want to just dive in the deep end, but the algorithms and Facebook business pages and all that sort of thing, really, they want you to pay for everything. Excuse me, I just need to sharpen my pencil. Managed to get away with not sharpening any yet. There we go. If you start off with a business page on Facebook, they want you to advertise everything to get it to go anywhere. So, I mean, you can do that. But once you start boosting posts, then they kind of expect you to carry on. So sometimes then when you think you're just going to get organic reach, it can be really rubbish, which is a bit of a nuisance because like a few years ago it was a really good tool to use because it was all free and the reach was really good, but now it is a lot harder. But yeah, definitely word of mouth and working for friends and family is really a good place to start. I wouldn't really approach galleries or anything like that until you're a bit more established. I mean, I wouldn't generally approach galleries. It's better if they come to you, to be honest. Put this a bit low and I want it off. This is the Derwent electric one, which is handy. use if you do make a mistake. I just put that eyelash down a bit too low, so I'm going to just go over it and blend it back in again so it's still nice and shiny. What else? Just add a bit more of this in here. I can see on the reference I've got his, like the white of his eye, but it's actually a little bit pinky. I don't want to make it too brown. It's that balance, isn't it, between making something look beautiful and making it look realistic. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of editing. Right, I think that's pretty much there. I haven't gone in with loads of black. I'll do that once I've kind of gone to about here with the fur, so that I can see how dark it needs to be in relation to the fur. I like to leave it a little bit longer before finishing it all off. So I'll do this bit here, which is always a bit weird because it's like shiny and matte at the same time. Let's take the lines off first. See what I mean about the outline being basic? So I've just taken the entire line off there, so now I've got to do it based on the reference. So, I mean, it's there for a guide, but really you end up rubbing most of it out anyway. I don't like having the pencil lines left underneath the drawing, because otherwise it can show through, which looks a bit rubbish. Have any of my drawings with frames come broken? Oh, I have. I lost one picture in a delivery, and it was so stressful. It was horrible. And I think I learnt a lot from that one. So I managed to get it back from the couriers, and I took the picture out, and it was actually okay. It had a few scratches across the drawing itself, but because they're oil based, you can fix it up quite easily. So I fixed it all up, and then I had an urgent rush because I think it was Christmas time, so I had to have an urgent panic to try and get the frame fixed and the glass repaired and the mount fixed as well, because the mount had broken. So my suppliers were absolutely amazing and really helped me out, and I managed to get it all back to the tip-top condition. And then I actually found out that my clients were close by, so I was able to hand deliver it, because I think by that point it was getting quite late in the day for Christmas deliveries. So I then actually took it to the client just to make sure that they got it safely. But the thing I've learnt since then is definitely to protect the corners with foam. You can get like blue foam in the shape of a corner, which you can get in different depths depending on the size of the frame. And then if you make a grid on the glass with some tape, I use micropore tape, but you can use masking tape or whatever you fancy. But if you are sending a glazed picture out to a client and it's got tape all over it, I just recommend putting together an artwork care sheet so that they know how to go about taking off any messy marks that the tape might leave, because it's not ideal to be spraying the glass cleaner straight onto the glass, because otherwise it can run down into the like the rebate, and you don't want any glass cleaner getting onto the mount or anything. So if you just recommend that they spray it onto a cloth and remove it that way. So it's always best to just give them the instructions so they don't spoil anything. But yeah, the glass just helps, not the glass, the tape helps to hold the glass together if it breaks. And then it hopefully won't damage the artwork. And then, yeah, just lots of bubble wrap. And I put really firm corrugated card on the front and the back and wrap it all up. before bubble wrapping it again. So it's quite a long process, but I think it's just worthwhile knowing that it's going to be there, get there safely. It's horrible sending glazed pictures. The worst part, I hate it. You think you put all that work into the picture and then the framing and the wrapping, and just keep an eye on the tracking like a hawk, just check that it's got there okay. Have I ever made a slip at spilling something? Oh no. I don't know if I have actually. I think I came very, very close to doing that. And actually, I do remember a time that I had a picture stuck up on the wall, so it was in progress while I was working on something else. And I put the picture stuck up on the wall next to my computer, and I had some hanging basket plant pot things hanging above my computer, and I was very stupid and tried to water the plant pots whilst over my computer, which is a very silly thing to do in the first place, but the water actually splashed off of that and onto the picture that I was in the middle of doing. So I think that's just a very silly thing to do, really. When you make mistakes like that, you think, how could I have been that stupid? But I definitely didn't do that again. Learnt my lesson. And now I make sure all my drinks and everything are far away, so that there's no risk of spilling anything. Not to say I won't come close though. And I do worry when my little boy comes in here, I have to remind him not to touch. Don't touch Mummy's drawings. Please don't touch Mummy's drawings. Where to go now? I think the bit around his eyeball here needs to be a bit darker, but like I say, I kind of work my way out and then come back on myself so that it's not too dark, and I can't take it off. So I put some base layers down, and then I'll go in and start putting the fur direction in. And like following it round, so sometimes it's quite curved depending on the shape of the face, so it's just worth checking the reference quite regularly to see where it's supposed to be going. This bit underneath the eye, this black eyelid here, then has a shiny bit underneath, which is like not furry as such. I'll just add in the fur underneath it, and then I can go back onto that shiny bit, add in all the details. So weird old textures on the eye, or around it anyway. I've got someone speak French. Sorry, I can't speak fluent French, otherwise I would try, but I can't speak very good French. Do you have a question? Oh no. Please, colour pencil box. Oh, my box. Oh, it's very messy. This is my box of coloured pencils. It's so messy, and I just have to rummage around in there. That's why I get out what I need, and then the others will just sit in the box. I don't use the tins. They're away in the cupboard with the colours that are banished. I don't use like the bright blues and greens and pinks and everything. Those poor pencils, they just sit in the box. They sit in the tin. I just can't get on with brightly coloured drawings. I've never been that fond of bright colours. I like to tidy up after I've done a drawing, make sure my desk is all nice and neat, and then I pick out the colours for the next one as I go. I don't necessarily pick them all out in one go. I just grab them from the box, and then by the end of the drawing I've got about 50 pencils on my desk. Right, I really need to concentrate on this bit under here. Wandered off again. Let's come back to this bit. It's got a really shiny, like bobbly texture, this bit here. And then there's loads of creases in this bit up here. Got all the shadows and everything to put in. It's a funny old bit. This is definitely nice to have a good reference to work from for this sort of thing though, because if you have a rubbish reference you kind of miss all these details, which is a shame because they really add to it, add to the area. You can get away without them, but just it's nice to have them all there. Yeah, still using the hot pressed Fabriano. I have got a couple of other papers, but I just get on well with the Fabriano, so I've not really wandered off from it. I've got some pastel mat that I used for, I bought it ages ago because I got it for my tiger piece that I did back in like 2017, I think. And the rest of the pieces have just been sat in the box. So I definitely like to give that a proper go with coloured pencils. I haven't done coloured pencil work on it before, so it'd be nice to give it a try. There's so many other different papers out there. I don't like trying new things if I like what I'm using. It's like the coloured pencils. I really loved Polychromos, so I stuck with them for years on their own, and then discovered that Luminance have got the Caran d'Ache Luminance has got loads of different shades that the Polychromos haven't got, so then I added them in, but I've been reluctant to add in any more recently, until recently. I've got a couple of other makes, but I always go back to the Polychromos. It's another question I get about 10 times a day. What? Pencils and paper. I should just have it in my bio. There's not enough room. Oh, this is testing my French. I don't use pastel pencils on pastel. Oh, yeah, no, I've done one piece on pastel mat with pastel pencils, and I used the Faber-Castell Pit pastels and the, what are they called, Carbello or something like that. I can't remember what brand they are, to be honest. Something beginning with C. And I did the tiger picture in that a few years ago, and then I went to do the lion in the pastels as well, and it just didn't work, so I went back to coloured pencils, and then I just kind of stuck with the pencils, really, the coloured pencils. I never went back to pastels. I just found them really frustrating to sharpen. I think that was my biggest gripe with them. It's just, they ruined my sharpener, and I couldn't get them pointy, and then I couldn't layer them up as I wanted to. So I started working in a different way in the end, and it just wasn't working. So I abandoned that, and then I've never gone back. I like how clean and tidy coloured pencils are. I think I'd get frustrated with how messy the pastels can be. So I'm using quite a firm pressure here, just because I've already got layers down already, so I'm just doing that round and round sort of scribbly motion again. I use this on any area that's not fur. If it is a base layer of fur, I'll go like that, back and forth. Just don't want scribbles underneath the fur. Right. I still haven't finished off this bit here, but I'm going to do this fur under this eye. So this is what, 3 layers in now, this little section. I use quite a soft pressure and just build it up really gradually in the direction that the fur is going, and then when I get into the 4th or 5th layer, I'll define all the hairs a bit better. With black fur, it's got so many shiny bits on it, you kind of have to add in an extra few layers for it to bring in the light and dark. I'll try and stick to this one bit so I can show you what I mean. Sometimes you pick up the wrong pencil and you do a layer, but I mean, if it's not too bad, you can just go over the top of it. This one, I mean, it's a little bit too light, so I'll add in another layer on top. Let's see if this one works. Warm grey, what are we on? 6. So that shows up a bit better. Got a bit more contrast there. And then you end up with all these little dib-dab-dab lines. Make a racket. Make everything shake. Hopefully the camera's not too shaky. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the French translations. That's the only problem, isn't it, with being able to have access to everyone internationally, but then having the language barriers. I find any messages that come through or comments that come through in another language, I'll try my best to translate them with Google Translate, but it's not always very accurate. But I try when I can. I had a message the other day that was in Russian, but you can't, on Instagram, you can't copy comments to be able to paste them into Google Translate, so I had to try and figure out exactly what language it was. I thought it was Russian, but I just wanted to double check, and then I had to get the keyboard on my phone so that I could use their alphabet, and then type it in to Google Translate and find out what they were saying. And then I was able to respond. It's quite a long process, but I just find it interesting because I want to know what people are asking me. I try to get back to everyone as much as I can. Sometimes it's hard to keep up if I'm busy with other things, but it definitely helps out with the Instagram algorithms as well. These fussy old things. Getting back to everybody as soon as you can is something that the algorithm likes. It's a pesky old thing. You have to make friends with it, I find. If you do something wrong, then it doesn't like you. Do I use a blender? No, I don't use any blenders. I just use the pencils. If I need to blend something, I will probably use a luminance pencil, to be honest, because they work really well as blenders themselves. Like the lighter colours like buff titanium or raw umber, raw umber 10%, or if it's a cooler tone, then the polychrome also even work well to blend stuff. I think as long as you build up the layers gradually, you can blend as you go. You just have to be patient in adding enough layers, I think. So if you try to just put a couple of layers down and then blend them together, it's not going to look very realistic. It won't give you a very realistic finish, because you'll get the grain of the paper coming through as well, which is a nuisance. I really want to do this bit here, but I keep avoiding it. So now if I was to carry on with this, which I will stop shortly because I've got a couple of other bits I need to do, but I will, I might pick it back up again on a live another time if anyone's interested. But yeah, from here now I'll just end up spiralling out and going wider and wider. If I touch the ear over here, then I'll probably end up working on the ear, and then I'll dart over here somewhere, so it all gets a bit crazy from that point. I get pencil everywhere. Got this one pencil that does not like my sharpener. It's very annoying. Okay, I don't know what's wrong with it. The wood is obviously harder than all the other ones. My pencil sharpener just hasn't got on with it from the beginning. If anyone's got any more questions, I'm happy to answer them before I go. Otherwise, I'll have to head off soon. I'll just run through and just double check I haven't missed anything. What type of dog am I drawing? He's a black Labrador. He's my dog, and he's called Wilbur. What are you thinking the most important details for hyperrealistic drawing? I'd say it's definitely in the features, and then getting the texture and the direction of fur is really important to make it look realistic as well, because the direction of the fur changes so much. It shapes the face and everything. So like this fur here, it will go up like that and then round to kind of curve around his face. So concentrating a lot on the direction of the fur is really important to make it look realistic. And then yeah, the features really help if you can get as much detail as you can in the features. Colouring, like picking out the right colours is important as well. But I think the two main things are definitely the direction of the fur and just concentrating on the tones that you're using and the different values, like the contrast between the light and the dark as well, like making sure your darks are dark enough and your lights are light enough. They all help. I haven't used the slice tool. I get asked about this one as well. I haven't used this on here, but this is my other tool that I use. I wouldn't use it until I'm about 5 or 6 layers in. It is a knife, but it is made of ceramic. It's made of ceramic, does that make sense? It is a ceramic knife. I'll do a tiny bit just to show you. It's not really got enough layers on it, but I'll show you anyway. So I just use it just ever so slight, like a light pressure, and on its side a little bit. And it just takes away some of the pencil, but with a really sharp line, so it gives you quite a lot of detail. Then I'll brush away any dust, and then I use another pencil just to go over it, just to make sure it's blended in nicely, so you haven't got any harsh lines in your work. So it's from Slice, that one. Slice ceramic craft knife, I think it is. I use that one quite a lot as well. It's usually later on in the process, so didn't really need to use it there, but I just wanted to show you in case you were wondering. Oh, did I miss one there? Tips on drawing blonde fur. You need to concentrate on the tone of the fur, I think, for the blondes, because it can change. It's a bit like white fur, so because it reflects or picks up the tones around it. It can be like a bluish colour, it can be pinky, sometimes more yellowy golden. So look at those colours first, and then just build up really gradually. I'd start off with a base layer, obviously for a light dog I'd use ivory or warm grey one, depending on how warm the tone is of the dog, but just using really, really light pressure and building it up as gradually as you can, concentrating on those different tones. I think that's kind of all I can explain. I am looking to do a blondie golden fur tutorial in the next few months, so if you are interested you can keep an eye out on when that goes up, and then have a look on my Patreon if you're interested. Yeah, I can't really explain it much more than that. It's obviously, with drawing, it's obviously a lot more about showing. Do I find it hard to post regularly? Sometimes it can be tricky to find stuff that is like good enough quality, because you never want to post just for the sake of it, because that if it's not interesting, then your followers won't engage with it very well, and then the algorithm works against you. So it's not advisable to just post for the sake of it. You need to make sure that everything that you do post is really eye-catching, really interesting, and if it's not particularly interesting visually, then perhaps in your description you can put a question, just so that you can get a bit more engagement out of it, because the algorithm thing, although people talk about it changing all the time, I found it's quite it does stay along the same sort of lines, that you have to post good quality content that your followers will engage with, that it's in line with your style, that you're not flitting about from one thing to another, and that you respond quickly to your comments and messages and things like that. As long as you keep those things up, then the algorithm can change here and there, but generally it all still works in your favour. You just have to be quite consistent. So if you're only able to produce enough work to put up one post a week that is really good content, then just stick to that until you're able to produce more. I think it's definitely worth... Dead battery. It's worth limiting what you post to make sure everything you post is good quality, rather than trying to keep up with like 2-3 posts a week or every day if you wanted to, but not having enough content. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I waffled a bit on that one. I think that's everything. I want to see a tutorial of drawing a puma. Oh, that would be cool. I haven't drawn one of them before. I'll add it to my list. But my list of pictures that I want to draw is so long. So I need about 10 years worth of drawing time to get through them all. But a puma would be cool to draw. Oh, I think that's going to have to be it though. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined me, and those that have stayed with me and asked so many questions. It's been really fun. I think I definitely will do it again. If you want anything in particular, any content from me, then just feel free to send me a message, because I always find it interesting to see what people are after. I think that's kind of it. So thank you. I'll post this up on Instagram TV, as I said before, so you can catch up with it again later. Goodbye.